Picture the largest army in human history. 1 million men, some say, maybe half that. Either way, more soldiers than anyone had ever seen in one place. Spring of 480 BCE, they're marching west from Persia toward Greece. And here's the thing that'll keep you awake tonight. This unstoppable force is about to meet 300 Spartan warriors in a mountain pass. 300 against 1 million. The Persians think it'll take maybe an hour. Instead, it changes the entire course of Western civilization. This is that story. Get comfortable. Seriously, find your perfect spot. Grab some water, dim those lights. This is going to be a journey. If you're new here, welcome to Sleepy Holidays, where we dive deep into history's most incredible true stories. Hit subscribe if you want more of these. And hey, drop a comment. Where are you listening from tonight? What time is it there? I love seeing where these stories travel. Alright, let's go back 2,500 years to when the fate of democracy hung in the balance. The Persian storm gathers. From atop a hill somewhere in what's now Turkey, you can see them coming. A river of bronze and leather stretching to the horizon. The dust cloud reaches the sky. You can feel the earth vibrating under your feet from their marching. This is Xerxes' army, king of kings, ruler of an empire that stretches from India to Egypt. And right now, every single one of those soldiers is heading toward Greece. The invasion that will decide whether democracy survives or dies before it really gets started. Xerxes isn't just any Persian king. His father Darius tried this exact same thing 10 years ago, got humiliated at Marathon by a bunch of Athenian farmers. Darius died still planning his revenge, so now it falls to his son. Xerxes has spent 4 years preparing, 4 years gathering troops from 46 different nations: Babylonians, Egyptians, Indians with their war elephants, Scythian horse archers. This isn't just an invasion. It's the entire known world marching against a handful of Greek city-states. The numbers are insane. Ancient historians claimed 1 million soldiers. Modern scholars think maybe 300,000. Either way, it's the largest military force anyone had ever assembled. When this army stops to drink from a river, that river runs dry. When they camp for the night, their fires stretch beyond the horizon. Greek scouts watching from the hills can't even count them. They just send messages south saying the same thing over and over, more than the stars in the sky. But here's what makes Xerxes dangerous beyond just numbers. He's methodical, brilliant even. While his army marches along the coast, his engineers are building bridges across straits that have never been bridged. His navy, 800 ships strong, sails alongside providing supplies. This isn't some barbarian horde charging into battle. This is the most sophisticated military machine the world has ever seen, organized, disciplined, unstoppable, and it's heading straight for Greece. Think about what Greece looks like in 480 BCE. Not a country, just a bunch of independent city-states who spend most of their time fighting each other. Athens with maybe 30,000 citizens, Sparta with 8,000, Corinth, Thebes, all of them combined couldn't field 50,000 soldiers on their best day, and most of those are part-time farmers who pick up a spear when they have to, against the greatest empire in human history. The odds are so ridiculous it's almost funny. Xerxes sits on his golden throne overlooking the camp. Servants bring him reports. The immortals, his elite guard, 10,000 strong, are ready. The Median infantry, 100,000 men, await orders. Cavalry from a dozen nations, siege engines, supply trains that stretch for miles. Everything perfectly organized, everything under control. He's 26 years old and about to complete what his father started, about to prove that Persian power is absolute, that resistance is futile. This is the moment, spring turning to summer. The vast machine finally starts moving west. You can hear it from miles away, the rhythm of 100,000 feet marching in step, the creak of wagon wheels, horses snorting, officers shouting orders in Persian, Median, Babylonian, the sound of the largest army in history finally unleashed, and at the front, mounted on his warhorse, rides Xerxes, king of kings, ready to finish what Marathon started, ready to end Greek independence forever. But there's something Xerxes doesn't know yet, something his scouts haven't reported. In Sparta, 300 miles south, King Leonidas is making preparations of his own, choosing 300 warriors, men with sons old enough to carry on their bloodlines, men who understand what's coming, men who've spent their entire lives preparing for exactly this moment. The collision between East and West, between empire and freedom, between overwhelming force and unbreakable will. The Persian column stretches so far you can't see the end. Supply wagons carrying food for 300,000 men, siege equipment to tear down Greek walls, tribute from conquered nations funding this enormous expedition. Every piece carefully planned, every detail accounted for. Xerxes has thought of everything, except for one small problem. One narrow mountain pass called Thermopylae, the hot gates, where geography might just matter more than numbers, where 300 Spartans are heading right now. Word reaches Greece, messengers racing south with impossible news. The Persians are coming, all of them, more soldiers than there are Greeks in all the city-states combined. Panic spreads. Some cities immediately surrender, send gifts to Xerxes, offer earth and water, the traditional symbols of submission, because what else can you do? How do you fight the entire world? How do you resist when resistance seems like suicide? Most Greeks are asking that exact question right now. But not all Greeks. In Athens, they're building ships. In Sparta, they're sharpening spears. Because here's the thing about freedom. Once you've tasted it, really tasted it, you'll die before you give it up. And that's exactly what's about to happen. The greatest empire in history is about to discover that some things can't be conquered. Some people won't kneel. Some stands are worth taking even when you know you're going to lose. The stage is set. Persian might against Greek defiance. Professional soldiers against citizen warriors. An empire that controls half the world against city-states that can barely control themselves. In a few weeks, all these forces will converge on a narrow coastal pass in central Greece, a place where hot sulfur springs bubble up from the earth, a place the Greeks call Thermopylae, the hot gates, where 300 Spartans will teach the world what courage really means. The Greek city-states in crisis. Spring 480 BCE. A Greek scout crests a hill somewhere in Thrace, looks south toward home, and sees something that makes his blood freeze. Dust clouds, massive ones, stretching from horizon to horizon. The Persian army Xerxes promised. It's real, it's here, and it's bigger than anything anyone imagined. He wheels his horse around and rides like death itself is chasing him, because in a way it is. Word has to reach the cities, all of them. Picture Athens at dawn. The agora filling with merchants, politicians arguing about grain imports, kids running between the stalls. Normal city stuff. Then a rider thunders through the gates, his horse lathered in sweat, shouting news that stops every conversation dead. The Persians are coming. Not maybe coming. Coming. And suddenly every petty dispute about trade routes and voting rights seems incredibly small, because democracy, this experiment they've been trying for barely a generation, might be about to end forever. The messenger system kicks into overdrive, fresh horses every 20 miles, riders switching out like relay racers, from Athens to Sparta, Sparta to Corinth, Corinth to Thebes, each city getting the same impossible news. Xerxes isn't bluffing. His army really is marching west. And here's the thing that makes it worse. They've got maybe weeks to figure out what to do. Unite against the strongest empire in the world? Submit and hope for mercy? The clock is ticking. And these cities, they hate each other. In Sparta, the ephors gather in emergency session. 5 men who basically run the city, debating in that calm Spartan way that somehow makes everything sound more terrifying. One of them points out the obvious problem. Their entire army, maybe 8,000 men total. The Persian force? Conservative estimates put it at 100,000, probably more. The math is simple and terrible, but there's something else in that room, something you can't calculate. Call it honor, call it stubbornness. Spartans don't run. Athens faces a different nightmare. They've got the biggest navy in Greece, sure, but on land, they're outnumbered by everyone, including the Persians. Plus there's this awkward fact. 10 years ago at Marathon, they beat a Persian invasion force, which means Xerxes has a very personal reason to want Athens burned to the ground. The assembly meets in continuous session, voices raised, arguments flying. Some want to fight, others want to negotiate. A few quietly suggest running, far away. Corinth sits at the crossroads, literally. Control the isthmus, control movement between northern and southern Greece. Their merchants have been trading with Persian territories for decades. They know exactly how rich, how organized, how ruthlessly efficient the Persian Empire is, and they're terrified. The debate in their council goes in circles: honor versus survival, profit versus principle, and underneath it all this growing certainty that whatever they decide, it's probably going to get them killed. Thebes has the most complicated position of all. They're close to the invasion route, probably first in line to get hit. But they've also got this history with Athens, and it's not good. Old grudges, border disputes, the kind of bad blood that makes alliances tricky. Some Theban leaders are quietly wondering, maybe Persian rule wouldn't be so bad. At least they're consistent, predictable, unlike these constantly squabbling Greek city-states that can't agree on anything, including how to avoid getting conquered. The religious angle complicates everything. Oracle at Delphi, supposedly neutral, but her prophecies are getting darker by the day. Something about wooden walls and eagles. Athens thinks it means ships. Sparta thinks it means shields. Everyone's interpreting the gods differently, which is pretty much peak Greek behavior. Meanwhile, priests are sacrificing animals left and right, trying to read the future in sheep livers. The omens are not encouraging. Even the gods seem nervous about what's coming. Here's what makes this moment so impossible. Each city-state has its own government, its own laws, its own way of doing things. Sparta's got kings and warrior culture. Athens has democracy and merchant fleets. Corinth has oligarchs and trade routes. They've been fighting each other for centuries. Now they need to work together against an enemy that's crushed every other civilization it's faced. It's like asking cats to form a marching band. Theoretically possible, practically, good luck with that. The pressure on the leaders is insane. Think about it. You're responsible for your entire city's survival. Make the wrong call and everyone you've ever known dies or becomes a slave. Choose to fight, and you might be leading your people into a massacre. Choose to surrender, and you might be selling out everything your ancestors built. No good options, no clear path forward. Just the weight of history pressing down on your shoulders while time runs out. Some cities just give up. Send ambassadors north with earth and water, the traditional symbols of submission to Persian rule. It's not cowardice exactly, it's math. Why throw away thousands of lives for a gesture? At least under Persian rule, the city survives. The people live. Their children grow up, maybe speaking Persian instead of Greek, but alive. It's a rational choice, which is exactly why it feels so much like betrayal to the cities that refuse to kneel. But then, something unexpected starts happening. Messengers arriving not just with panic, but with promises. Sparta will stand. Athens will fight. Send your forces to this place called Thermopylae. The momentum shifts. Fear gives way to something else. Not confidence, exactly. More like defiance. The crazy kind of defiance that makes you charge into certain death because the alternative is living on your knees. Greek pride, Greek stubbornness, Greek inability to know when they're beaten before the fighting even starts. The alliance that forms isn't pretty. It's held together by necessity and spite in equal measure. 31 cities agree to coordinate defense. Hundreds more stay neutral or submit. The Greek world splits down the middle, and the ones who choose to fight, they're committing to something unprecedented. A unified command structure, shared resources, setting aside generations of grudges for the slim chance of survival. It shouldn't work. By all logic, it can't work. But desperate times make strange partnerships possible. As summer approaches, the die is cast. The Persian storm is coming. The Greek cities have chosen their sides, and in Sparta, a king named Leonidas starts making plans that will echo through history for the next 2,500 years. Plans involving a narrow mountain pass called Thermopylae, the Hot Gates, where 300 Spartans are about to teach the world what happens when honor meets impossible odds. The greatest military force ever assembled is about to learn why you should never underestimate Greek stubbornness. Leonidas and the Spartan Code. Spring morning, 480 BCE. The king of Sparta kneels before the oracle at the temple of Athena. He's 56 years old. Grey streaks his dark beard. Scars map his bronze arms like a warrior's resume. This isn't some young hero from the stories. This is a man who's killed with his own hands more times than he can count, who's buried friends, who's ruled for 15 years, and now the Pythia speaks words that will echo through eternity. The prophecy hits like a spear thrust. Sparta will be saved, but only through the death of one of her kings. The oracle's voice is distant, otherworldly, but Leonidas hears every syllable. His hands don't shake, his breathing stays steady. This is what 50 years of Spartan training does to a man. You learn to receive death sentences the way other men receive dinner invitations, with dignity, with acceptance. But underneath, yeah, he's still human. Let's talk about what made this man. Leonidas wasn't born to be king. That was his half-brother Cleomenes. But Cleomenes went mad and died, suspiciously. Probably suicide, maybe murder. Palace politics in ancient Sparta were brutal. So the crown fell to Leonidas, the spare heir who'd spent his whole life preparing for war, not rulership. Except in Sparta, those were basically the same thing. Every king was expected to die fighting. The agoge, that's where Leonidas learned to be Spartan. Age 7, ripped from his mother's arms. No more soft beds or regular meals. 21 years of systematic brutality, designed to forge the perfect warrior. Cold, hunger, pain, humiliation, all of it calculated. The goal wasn't just physical toughness, it was mental, to create men who could stand in a phalanx and never break, never retreat, never surrender, even facing certain death. Here's what's wild about Leonidas. He genuinely believes in this system, not like some broken victim, like a true believer. Because look what Sparta has accomplished. 200 years of military dominance, never conquered, never occupied, never forced to bow to any foreign power. While other Greek cities rise and fall like wheat in the wind, Sparta endures. The agoge works, the code works, even if it demands everything from you. But the oracle's words change something. Walking back from the temple, Leonidas starts seeing his kingdom differently. These streets where he played as a boy, the training grounds where he learnt to kill, the palace where his wife Gorgo waits, his son Pleistarchus, barely 10 years old, all of it might depend on his death. Not might, will. The oracle doesn't give multiple choice answers. The gods have spoken. That evening, he finds Gorgo in their chambers. She's one of the smartest people in Sparta, man or woman, daughter of a former king, political advisor, strategic thinker. She reads his face immediately, doesn't ask what the oracle said, doesn't need to. Instead, she pours wine. They sit together in silence. Sometimes the most important conversations happen without words. She knows, he knows, she knows. That's enough. The next morning brings Persian envoys. Again, Xerxes keeps sending these diplomatic missions demanding earth and water, symbols of submission. Most Greek cities have already complied. Send a handful of dirt and a cup of seawater to Persepolis, and the great king will leave you alone. Simple, practical, smart even. But Leonidas has his father's temper, and his grandfather threw the last Persian envoys down a well. Family tradition. The lead envoy is nervous, rightfully so. He's standing in the throne room where diplomats come to die. Leonidas listens to the demands, the threats, the promises of mercy, if Sparta submits. Standard Persian negotiation tactics. When the man finishes his speech, Leonidas stands, all 6 feet of scarred Spartan king, and says the words that will echo through history. If you want our earth and water, come and take them. The envoys leave unharmed. This time, but Leonidas knows they'll be back with an army. The largest army ever assembled. According to Greek spies, Xerxes commands forces from 46 nations, Indians with cotton armor and bamboo spears, African warriors with animal skin shields, the legendary immortals in their golden armor, cavalry, siege engines, naval support. Against this tide, Sparta can field maybe 8,000 warriors. The math is simple and hopeless. But here's where Leonidas's genius shows. He's not planning to fight the entire Persian army on an open field. That would be suicide, not strategy. Instead, he starts thinking about geography. Narrow places where numbers don't matter, mountain passes, coastal bottlenecks. Anywhere a small force of superior warriors can hold against multitudes. The kind of tactical thinking that separates kings from corpses. He's not giving up, he's getting smart. Late at night, alone in his study, Leonidas reviews maps. His finger traces the route from Asia into Greece. Mountain ranges, river crossings, coastal roads. There, Thermopylae, The Hot Gates, a pass so narrow that Persian numbers become meaningless, a place where 300 Spartans might hold off 3 million Persians for a while, maybe long enough for the other Greek cities to mobilize, to unite, to fight back. It's not about winning anymore, it's about buying time. The oracle's prophecy starts making sense. Not just random divine cruelty, but strategic necessity. If the king of Sparta dies defending Greece, it sends a message, to allies and enemies alike, that resistance is possible, that tyranny can be opposed, that free men fight differently than slaves. Leonidas' death could inspire the entire Greek world, turn a hopeless situation into, well, still hopeless, but hopeless with purpose, with meaning. So he begins to prepare, not just for battle but for sacrifice, choosing his 300 personal bodyguards, men with living sons to carry on their bloodlines, strengthening alliances with other Greek cities, gathering intelligence on Persian movements, planning the march to Thermopylae. Every decision filtered through the oracle's words. Sparta will be saved by the death of a king. Fine, he'll die well, he'll die as a Spartan, and maybe, just maybe, that will be enough. The march to Thermopylae. Spring 480 BCE. King Leonidas stands in the courtyard of his palace, bronze armor gleaming in dawn light. The oracle's words echo in his mind. Sparta will be saved only by the death of one of her kings. He understands now. This isn't just about strategy or tactics. This is about fate, divine prophecy, and around him 300 of Sparta's finest warriors prepare for a journey they all sense will be their last. But here's what makes this moment extraordinary. These men volunteered. The selection wasn't random. Every single one of these warriors has living sons back in Sparta. Think about that choice for a second. Leonidas could have taken anyone, the youngest, strongest fighters. Instead, he chose fathers, men whose bloodlines would continue even if they didn't return. It's calculated genetic preservation wrapped in a suicide mission. These aren't reckless young soldiers seeking glory. They're mature warriors, most in their 30s or 40s, who understand exactly what they're walking into. Each warrior carries 60 pounds of bronze armor, a 9-foot spear, and a shield bearing the lambda symbol of Lacedaemon. Their crimson cloaks flutter in the morning breeze. These men have trained together since childhood. They know each other's breathing patterns in battle, can fight as a unit even in complete darkness. As they form ranks for the march north, there's no fanfare, no speeches, just the quiet efficiency of professional killers preparing for work they've spent their entire lives training for. The gates of Sparta swing open. 300 warriors march out in perfect formation, bronze-shod feet striking stone in unison. Behind them, wives and mothers watch from rooftops. No tears, no wailing. This is Sparta. A Spartan mother's final words to her son, "Come back with your shield, or on it." The column moves through the olive groves surrounding the city, heading northeast toward the mountains. The sound of their march carries across the valley, rhythmic, relentless, like a heartbeat heading towards silence. They move through the Peloponnese like a bronze river flowing uphill. Dusty roads, ancient stones, scattered farms where peasants stop their work to watch these legendary warriors pass. The Spartans maintain perfect formation even on rough terrain. No talking in ranks, no breaking step, just the steady rhythm of iron discipline made manifest. Their route takes them through valleys where olive trees cast shadows across their crimson cloaks, past streams where they pause only long enough to refill water skins and check equipment. Word spreads ahead of their march. Villagers gather along the roadside, children wide-eyed at seeing Spartan warriors in person. Old men nodding with grim respect, women clutching babies closer. Some throw flower petals, others just stare in awed silence. These people understand what's happening. The Spartans aren't just marching to battle, they're marching to legend, to immortality earned through sacrifice. And everyone watching knows they're witnessing something that will be remembered for thousands of years, if Greece survives. At Corinth, the first Allied forces join the march. 700 Thespians, full citizens who voted to stand with Sparta despite knowing the odds. Then Thebans, 400 strong, though some question their loyalty. The column grows, but it's still pitifully small compared to what's coming from the east. Persian scouts have reported enemy numbers, hundreds of thousands, maybe more. Yet these Greek allies march forward anyway, because sometimes the impossible becomes necessary. More allies arrive daily. Mantineans, Arcadians, soldiers from Mycenae, the ancient city of Agamemnon. By the time they reach the foothills leading to Thermopylae, their numbers have swelled to nearly 7,000. Still nothing compared to Xerxes' horde, but respectable for a defensive action. The Spartans remain the core, though the 300 who'll anchor whatever line they form. Everyone else understands this. The other Greeks are there to fight, but the Spartans, they're there to die. Watch how the Spartans march compared to everyone else. The allies talk, joke, adjust their equipment, show normal human nervousness. The 300, absolute silence, bronze faces hidden beneath their helmets. They move like machinery, precise, efficient, terrifying. Their discipline isn't just military training, it's a kind of religious devotion. They've spent their entire lives preparing for this moment, to stand in the breach when civilization itself hangs in the balance, and they're finally getting their chance. The landscape changes as they push north. Rolling hills give way to rough mountains, pine forests, rocky outcroppings where eagles circle overhead, almost like omens. The road narrows, winding through passes that preview what awaits at Thermopylae. Cliff sides on one side, deep valleys on the other. Perfect defensive terrain if you're fighting superior numbers. The Spartans study every ridge, every choke point, their tactical minds already calculating angles of attack, fields of fire, retreat routes they'll never use. The mood grows heavier with each mile north. Everyone feels it. The weight of approaching fate. Conversations become quieter. Laughter dies out completely. These men are marching toward legend, but legend requires death. Greek poets will sing about this march for centuries, but the singers won't be the ones carrying 60-pound bronze panoplies up mountain roads, knowing Persian arrows wait at the end. There's something almost sacred about their journey now, pilgrims walking toward their own martyrdom. On the final day of March, scouts return with reports. Thermopylae lies just ahead, the hot gates, where sulfur springs bubble up from underground, giving the place its name. The pass is exactly as described, narrow, defensible, perfect for their needs. But there's something else. Persian advance scouts have been spotted. Xerxes' army is close, very close, maybe 2 days out, maybe less. The time for marching is almost over. Soon, very soon, these 7,000 Greeks will face the largest army ever assembled in human history. They crest the final hill before Thermopylae as evening approaches. Below them stretches the narrow coastal pass, cliffs rising on their left, the sea crashing against rocks on their right. In the center, an ancient stone wall built by Phocians centuries ago to keep out northern invaders. It's crumbling now, but it'll do. This is it, the hot gates. The place where 300 Spartans will earn immortality, where the fate of Western civilization will hang on bronze shields and iron discipline, and men willing to die for something greater than themselves. Leonidas calls a halt. The warriors set down their shields, stretch muscles cramped from days of marching. Some walk to the edge of the cliffs, staring out at the Aegean Sea, where Greek ships patrol distant waters. Others examine the old wall they'll rebuild tomorrow. The Spartans remain silent, but their eyes take in everything: angles, distances, tactical possibilities. They've reached their destination. Now comes the waiting. Soon Persian horns will sound across these mountains. Soon the killing will begin. But tonight they rest before their appointment with history. The hot gates. The smell hits them first. Sulfur, sharp and acrid, like the breath of some underground god. Leonidas and his 300 crest the final hill, and there it is, Thermopylae, the narrow coastal pass that will either save Greece or become their tomb. Mountains rise on their left, sheer and unforgiving. The Malian Gulf crashes against rocks on their right, and between them, a corridor of land barely 50 feet wide at its narrowest point. Perfect. Those sulfur springs bubble up from deep in the earth, steam rising like ghostly fingers. That's why they call it the hot gates. The water's warm enough to bathe in, which the Spartans will constantly, driving the Persian scouts absolutely insane. Here's an army facing annihilation, and they're taking hot baths. Yeah, because that's how Spartans work. Everything's a statement. Everything's psychological warfare. Even basic hygiene becomes an act of defiance. Look at this place through military eyes. Any army coming south has to squeeze through here. There's no going around, not with that fleet to worry about. The mountains are impassable for large forces. The sea blocks the other flank, so Xerxes' million-man army becomes irrelevant. In this funnel, maybe 20 men can fight side by side. 20 Spartans can hold off 20 Persians. Numbers stop mattering. Geography becomes destiny. The Spartans find the old Phocian wall. It's crumbling, built generations ago by locals trying to keep northern tribes out. But the bones are still good. Stone foundation, defensive position, perfect height for a shield wall. Leonidas runs his hand along the ancient blocks. Someone else stood here once, facing impossible odds. The irony isn't lost on him. They'll rebuild this wall, make it worthy of what's coming. Work begins immediately. Every Greek who can lift stone joins in. Thespians, Thebans, Corinthians, they're all here now, about 7,000 total. The wall rises, block by block. Not fancy engineering, just solid defense. Shoulder high, thick enough to stop arrows, positioned to force attackers into a killing zone. This isn't about pretty architecture. This is about creating the deadliest funnel in military history. Leonidas positions his forces like a chess master. The 300 Spartans at the wall's center, obviously. They're his shock troops, his immovable object. Allied forces spread along the flanks, ready to rotate in and out. The Spartan system, fresh fighters replacing tired ones, maintaining that bronze wall of death indefinitely. As long as the narrow pass holds, they can bleed Xerxes dry, one Persian charge at a time. The geography here is everything. Mountains on the left rise almost vertically. No armies climbing those cliffs in armor. The sea on the right crashes against jagged rocks. Ships can't land troops here, not safely. And that Persian fleet? They're dealing with autumn storms, rough water, unfamiliar coastline. Nature herself fights for Greece here. The gods chose this battleground long before men arrived to bleed on it. More Greeks keep arriving. Locrians from the mountains, knowing these trails better than anyone. Phocians who built the original wall. Each group brings local knowledge, supplies, determination. This isn't just Sparta's fight anymore. It's Greece itself making a stand. Different dialects, different armor styles, but the same grim resolve. They all understand what failure means. Persian slavery for every Greek city. Leonidas walks the position constantly, measuring angles, studying approaches. 50 years old, every scar earned in combat. He sees what others miss, where the wall needs strengthening, how to channel enemy forces into the tightest kill zone, which positions offer the best retreat routes if things go catastrophically wrong, though retreat isn't really in the Spartan vocabulary. Stand and die, or win standing, those are the options. Weapons maintenance becomes ritual. Bronze spear points, iron sword blades, leather shield grips, everything checked, oiled, sharpened. The Spartan shield weighs 30 pounds, bronze-faced, perfectly balanced. Their spears stretch 8 feet, designed for close-quarters stabbing. No fancy moves, no individual heroics, just disciplined killing, man after man, until the enemy breaks or every Greek lies dead. The psychological preparation matters as much as the physical. Spartans exercise naked in view of the pass, muscles gleaming with oil, movements precise as dance. It's theatre, pure and simple. Any Persian scout watching reports back the same thing. These Greeks aren't afraid. They're preparing for battle like it's a religious festival, which for Spartans it basically is. War as worship, violence as prayer. Final details fall into place. Supply lines secured, though they won't last long. Communication runners positioned, though the messages won't matter much. Burial details assigned, though most bodies will stay where they fall. This isn't optimistic planning. This is acknowledging reality. They're here to buy time for Greece, paid for in Spartan blood. The only question is how much time their lives can purchase. Strange calm settles over the hot gates. Gulls cry overhead, waves crash against rocks, sulfur steam drifts from the springs. Beautiful, almost peaceful. Hard to believe this narrow strip of coast is about to become the most famous killing ground in ancient history. The Spartans sharpen spears and joke quietly. Death doesn't scare them, dishonor does. Failing Greece does, dying without taking enough Persians with them. Leonidas stands at the rebuilt wall, studying the northern approach. Somewhere out there, Xerxes marches with the largest army ever assembled. Medians, Persians, Scythians, Indians, the entire known world bearing down on this single pass. But the king isn't thinking about numbers anymore. He's thinking about his 300, their families back in Sparta, the future of Greece itself. Tomorrow the storm breaks. Tonight they prepare to become legends. Xerxes arrives, the dark tide. Picture this. You're a Greek scout, crouched behind rocks above Thermopylae. You've been watching the northern horizon for days. Then you see it, a dark line where earth meets sky. Not clouds, not a storm front. Men, thousands upon thousands of men marching south toward your position. The dust cloud stretches beyond sight. The ground actually trembles beneath your feet. This isn't an army. This is a migration, a civilization on the move, and it's heading straight for 300 Spartans. The Persian advance takes 3 full days to reach the plains before Thermopylae. Think about that for a second. 3 days for a column of soldiers to pass a single point. Ancient sources say when this army crossed rivers, those rivers ran dry. When they camped, they stripped entire regions of food. Modern historians estimate maybe 200,000 troops, but even that number is almost incomprehensible. The largest army anyone in Greece had ever imagined, rolling toward the hot gates like some dark tide. As evening falls, Persian campfires begin to flicker across the plain. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. The Greek scouts watching from the mountains count until they give up counting. The fires stretch from the foothills to the sea, orange dots scattered like stars fallen to earth. Each fire represents a unit, a squad, soldiers speaking languages the Greeks have never heard, from India, from Egypt, from the steppes beyond the Black Sea, all united under one king's banner. Then the immortals make their appearance. 10,000 elite Persian warriors, and when you see them, you understand why they terrify enemies across the known world. Their armor gleams like liquid gold in the firelight. Scale mail that catches every flicker, tall spears with silver points, shields decorated with mythical beasts. These aren't just soldiers, they're walking works of art. Each piece of gear worth more than a Greek farmer sees in a lifetime. Beauty designed to intimidate, wealth weaponized into psychological warfare. The cavalry arrives in waves, Scythian horse archers from the northern steppes, their composite bows legendary for range and accuracy. Median horsemen in flowing robes, masters of the mounted charge. Bactrian heavy cavalry in bronze armor, both horse and rider protected. Indians mounted on, wait for this, war elephants. Actual elephants. The Greeks have never seen elephants before. To them, these creatures look like monsters from mythology. Living siege engines with tusks and trumpeting calls that echo across the plain all night. And then there's Xerxes himself. The great king doesn't sleep in a tent like his soldiers. No, Persian engineers have constructed a mobile throne platform, solid gold inlaid with precious stones, elevated so the king can observe his vast forces spread below him like a living map. From this throne, Xerxes can see from the mountains to the sea. His royal guard surrounds the platform in concentric circles, layer upon layer of protection for the man who considers himself a god, walking among mortals. The Greek scouts creep closer under cover of darkness. What they see defies imagination. Cooking fires that number in the thousands, supply trains stretching beyond sight, cavalry corrals holding tens of thousands of horses, weaponsmiths working through the night, hammers ringing against metal. The sound alone, imagine a city of 200,000 people, all preparing for war simultaneously. The noise carries for miles, voices in dozens of languages blending into a constant hum of organized chaos. Xerxes summons his advisors at dawn. The Persian king has been briefed about the Greek position, a narrow pass. Mountains on one side, sea on the other, defended by, and here's where the intelligence becomes almost comical, 300 Spartans, plus maybe 6,000 allied Greeks, total enemy strength, roughly 7,000 men. Xerxes commands perhaps 300,000. The mathematical disparity is so absurd it seems like a mistake. His advisors confirm the numbers. The king actually laughs. This can't be serious resistance. But something bothers Xerxes. He's conquered nations that surrendered at the mere sight of his approaching army. Cities that opened their gates rather than face Persian wrath. Yet here, these Greeks, they're not running. They're not sending surrender envoys. they're actually preparing to fight. From his golden throne, Xerxes studies the distant past through the morning haze, those tiny figures moving along the wall, strengthening defenses, getting ready for battle. The audacity is unprecedented, almost insulting. The psychological warfare begins immediately. Persian heralds ride forward carrying demands for submission. Standard procedure: offer terms, allow graceful surrender, avoid unnecessary bloodshed. But the Greek response is different. The herald returns with a message from the Spartan king, Leonidas. When ordered to surrender weapons, his reply is two words: come take them. Not negotiation, not delay tactics, direct challenge. The Persian court buzzes with shock. Nobody speaks to the great king this way, ever. Xerxes orders closer reconnaissance. Persian cavalry scouts approach the Greek position. What they report back sounds impossible. The Spartans aren't cowering behind their wall. They're exercising, naked, in full view of Persian observers, oiling their bronze-muscled bodies like they're preparing for athletic competition, not battle against impossible odds. Their contempt is so complete, so absolute, that it borders on madness, or supreme confidence. The scouts can't decide which interpretation terrifies them more. For 4 days, Xerxes waits. This goes against every instinct, every precedent. Persian strategy relies on overwhelming force applied immediately, shock and awe. But something about these Greeks makes him hesitate. Maybe it's their bizarre fearlessness. Maybe it's the terrain, that narrow pass where numbers mean nothing. Or maybe, just maybe, the great king is experiencing something he's never felt before: doubt. The possibility that his vast army might not be enough, that some battles can't be won with gold and numbers. The tension builds like pressure before a thunderstorm. Persian soldiers sharpen weapons they've sharpened already. Greek warriors continue their strange exercises, treating the approach of death like preparation for a festival. Both armies can see each other now. The scale is mind-bending. 200,000 Persian campfires versus maybe a dozen Greek cooking fires. Yet neither side shows any sign of backing down. The pass itself seems to hold its breath, waiting for violence that will reshape the ancient world. As the fourth night falls, both armies know tomorrow will bring battle. The Persians sleep fitfully, disturbed by dreams of the strange naked warriors who show no fear. The Greeks sleep deeply, the sleep of men at peace with their choices. Xerxes stares from his golden throne toward the dark outline of mountains, where 300 Spartans wait for dawn. He still can't believe these Greeks will actually fight, but in a few hours he'll discover just how wrong absolute power can be. Uneasy precipice. The first days of battle. August heat. The Persian camp sprawls before Thermopylae like a city that appeared overnight. Xerxes sits on his golden throne, waiting. 4 days now. 4 days watching that narrow pass, expecting any moment to see Greek shields retreating toward Athens. But they don't move. Not one step back. The great king drums his fingers on gilded armrests. This wasn't supposed to happen. A few thousand Greeks should have seen his numbers and fled immediately. Behind the old Phocian wall, the Greeks work, not panicking, not debating retreat, working. Spartans stack stones with the same methodical precision they use for everything else. Thespians haul timber. Athenians dig drainage channels. The wall was ancient when Xerxes was born, built centuries ago by the Phocians to keep out raiders. Now it's being rebuilt, reinforced, turned into something that can channel the fury of an empire into a killing funnel. Persian scouts creep close enough to observe. What they report back makes no sense to Xerxes. The Greeks are exercising, in full view of the enemy. Naked Spartans doing calisthenics like they're back home in Lacedaemon, oiling their long hair, sharpening spears with casual precision. One group practices sword forms while another repairs armor. It's not the behavior of men about to surrender. It's the behavior of men preparing for war. Xerxes calls his advisors. Demaratus, the exiled Spartan king in his court, tries to explain what they're witnessing. When Spartans prepare for death, he says, they always groom themselves carefully. The long hair, the physical training, the calm deliberation, these aren't signs of surrender. They're funeral preparations. Spartans beautify themselves before battle because they might not live to do it again. Xerxes doesn't want to hear this. It contradicts everything he believes about power. The great king has conquered from India to Egypt. Cities prostrate themselves before his approach. Entire nations send tribute rather than face his wrath. But here, at this forgotten mountain pass, 300 men mock his power simply by refusing to acknowledge it. They comb their hair, they exercise, they repair their weapons, they act like his million-man army is a minor inconvenience, rather than the wrath of the greatest empire on earth. Day 2. Xerxes sends heralds under white flags. The message is simple: surrender now and live as slaves, or stay and die as free men. Leonidas's response becomes legend. When asked to lay down their weapons, he tells the herald to come and take them. The phrase in ancient Greek is just 3 words. Molon lab, come and take them. It's not a taunt, it's a statement of fact. If Xerxes wants their weapons, he'll have to pry them from dead hands. The psychological warfare cuts both ways. Persian soldiers glimpse these bronze-armored figures moving behind their wall and whisper among themselves, "How can so few be so confident?" Some Persians have heard stories about Spartans, children taken from their mothers at 7. 20 years of brutal training, a culture that values death in battle above life itself. But stories are just stories until you see 300 of them preparing to fight 1,000,000 of you. Day 3. Xerxes tries a different approach. He summons Epitaph, a local Greek who's offered information about mountain paths. There are ways around the pass, the man claims. Secret trails known only to shepherds and hunters. For the right price, he'll guide Persian forces through the mountains, bypassing the Greek position entirely. Xerxes listens but doesn't commit. Why use trickery when overwhelming force should suffice? His pride demands a frontal victory. The waiting affects both armies differently. Persians grow restless. They're accustomed to quick campaigns, swift victories, enemies who collapse at the first show of force. This standoff feels wrong, unnatural. Meanwhile, the Greeks settle into a rhythm. Morning exercises, weapon maintenance, meals shared in small groups. They joke, tell stories, sleep deeply. Men who know they're going to die soon but have made peace with it. The contrast couldn't be more striking. Day 4. Persian patience wears thin. Some officers suggest simply marching around the Greeks, leaving them to guard an empty pass while the army advances toward Athens. But Xerxes can't tolerate the insult. His entire imperial system depends on the perception of invincibility. If word spreads that a handful of Greeks faced down the great king and lived to tell about it, every province from Babylon to Memphis might start getting ideas about rebellion. Behind their wall, the Greeks make final preparations. Shields are polished until they gleam like mirrors. Spear points are honed to razor sharpness. Bronze breastplates are adjusted for maximum mobility. The Spartan lambda emblems, capital L for Lacedaemon, shine red against bronze backgrounds. Everything is ready. The only question now is when Xerxes will finally lose patience and attack. The Greeks hope it's soon. Waiting is harder than fighting. Leonidas walks the line, speaking quietly with his men, not giving speeches or stirring up heroic passion, just checking in. How's your family? Are your affairs in order? Do you need anything? The mundane concerns of soldiers who've accepted their fate. Some write final letters home, though they know there's little chance of delivery. Others pray to their ancestors, asking for strength and a good death. The mood is calm, almost peaceful. As the 4th day ends, both sides understand the waiting is nearly over. Persian campfires stretch to the horizon like fallen stars. The Greek position looks pitifully small by comparison. 300 crimson cloaks around a stone wall, 7,000 allies spread across the wider areas of the pass. Math says they're doomed. History says they're doomed. Logic says they're doomed. But mathematics has never accounted for Spartan stubbornness or the power of choosing your own death. Night falls over Thermopylae. The hot springs that give this place its name still bubble and steam, indifferent to human plans for glory or conquest. Persian sentries peer across the darkness toward the Greek position, where small fires burn behind the ancient wall. Tomorrow Xerxes will finally order the attack. Tomorrow the real battle begins. Tonight, 300 Spartans sleep the deep sleep of men who've already decided how their story ends. In the morning, they'll write it in blood and bronze. The Persian assault begins. Dawn breaks on the 5th day. Xerxes has waited long enough. 4 days of staring across that narrow pass. At 300 Spartans who won't budge. 4 days watching them exercise naked, comb their hair, sharpen their spears like they're preparing for a festival. Instead of facing annihilation, the great king's patience is gone. He signals his commanders. The Median troops move first, thousands of them, shields up, spears ready. Behind them, the Scythians. This is it. Picture the sound. Thousands of feet hitting rocky ground in rhythm. War cries in a dozen different languages echoing off the mountain walls. The clatter of bronze on bronze as armor shifts and weapons rattle. And from the Greek side, almost nothing. Just the steady breathing of men who've trained their entire lives for this exact moment. Leonidas stands in front, his red cloak the only splash of color in that bronze line, waiting. The Median charge hits the pass at full sprint. These aren't untrained conscripts. These are experienced warriors from the empire's heartland. They've conquered cities, crushed rebellions, spread Persian dominion from the Indus to the Nile. But as they funnel into that 50-foot bottleneck, something goes wrong. The math stops working. 1,000 men become 100. 100 become 50. The Spartan phalanx doesn't even move. It just receives them. Here's what happens when bronze meets bronze in close quarters. The Spartan shields lock together, hoplon overlapping hoplon in a wall 7 feet high. Behind those shields, 8-foot spears bristle out like the quills of some massive hedgehog. The Persians crash into this formation and they die. Not heroically, not dramatically, they just get methodically killed by men who've been practicing this exact choreography since childhood. It's almost surgical. The horror isn't the dying, it's the efficiency. A Persian warrior charges forward, spear raised, war cry on his lips. A Spartan spear point finds the gap between his armor plates. He falls. The Spartan steps back into position. Next Persian forward. Same result. No emotion, no wasted motion. Just bronze death delivered with the precision of a religious ritual. The bodies start piling up in front of the Greek line. Xerxes watches from his golden throne, and for the first time uncertainty creeps in. His Medians are good soldiers. They've won battles across 3 continents, but they're fighting uphill into a meat grinder that turns courage into corpses. The pass is only 50 feet wide here. No room for cavalry, no space to use superior numbers, just bronze wall against bronze wall, and the Greeks have built a better wall. The first wave breaks, literally breaks. Persian survivors stumble backward over their own dead, bleeding, demoralized, shocked that Greeks could stand against the army that conquered Babylon. But Xerxes isn't done. He signals the Scythian commanders. Fresh troops move forward, stepping over Median corpses, shields up, ready to try again. The Spartans haven't even broken formation. They're still just standing there, waiting for round 2. This is where you really see the difference between the 2 armies. The Persians fight as individuals. Brave individuals, skilled individuals, but still, each man for himself. The Spartans fight as a single organism. When one gets tired, another steps up. When a spear breaks, a sword appears. When a shield gets damaged, the line adjusts without missing a beat. It's not just training, it's something deeper, something almost inhuman. The Scythian assault goes exactly like the Median charge. Brave men running uphill to die on Greek spears. The narrow pass negates everything Xerxes thought he knew about warfare. Superior numbers mean nothing when only 50 men can fight at once. Superior cavalry means nothing when there's no room to maneuver. Superior archery means nothing when you can't get a clear shot past your own front line. Geography is destiny. By midday, the ground in front of the Spartan position is carpeted with Persian dead. Blood runs between the rocks like rainwater. The smell, iron and opened bowels, and the sweet sick stench of split bronze. Greek allies behind the Spartans watch in stunned silence. They knew Spartans were good. They didn't know Spartans were this good. This isn't war. This is systematic extermination delivered with the precision of a craft. Xerxes sends in a 3rd wave, then a 4th. Different troops, same result. The pass becomes a killing ground where Persian courage meets Spartan efficiency and dies. What's maddening is how calm the Greeks remain. No battle fury, no berserker rage, just professional soldiers doing professional work with professional tools. Killing becomes routine, death becomes ordinary. That's the most terrifying thing of all. The afternoon sun beats down on bronze armor and bronze death. Persian commanders start hesitating before ordering the next charge. Their men start looking at that narrow pass like it's the mouth of Hades itself. because that's exactly what it's become, a place where empires come to die, where the mathematics of warfare break down, where 300 men can hold back 100,000. Physics shouldn't allow this, but physics apparently doesn't understand Spartans. As shadows lengthen, Persian casualties mount into the thousands while Greek losses remain minimal. A few wounds, maybe a broken spear or dented shield, but no dead. Not yet. The Spartans rotate fresh fighters forward like they're changing shifts at a forge. The front rank steps back. The second rank moves up. The killing continues without pause. Efficiency elevated to an art form. Death as choreography. When the sun finally sets on this first day of actual fighting, Xerxes calls off the assault. His army retreats to lick wounds and count the dead. Thousands of Persian soldiers won't see tomorrow's sunrise. The hot gates have lived up to their name, but not because of the sulfur springs, because bronze got hot with Persian blood. And tomorrow, Xerxes will unleash his immortals. The immortals meet their match. Day 5 at Thermopylae. Xerxes has watched wave after wave of his best troops break against the Spartan phalanx like ocean swells against granite cliffs. His Median guards, dead. His Kissian warriors, shattered. The bodies are piling up so thick in the pass that Persian soldiers have to climb over their own dead just to reach the Greek spears. So now Xerxes calls for his ultimate weapon, the immortals. 10,000 elite warriors who've never lost a battle, who've conquered empires. These aren't regular soldiers. The immortals are Xerxes' personal shock troops, recruited from Persian nobility, each one hand-picked, each one trained from childhood in the warrior arts. They wear scale armor that catches the light like fish scales, carry gold-handled spears and jeweled daggers. Their shields are wicker and leather, light, fast, designed for mobility. They're called immortals because whenever one falls in battle, he's immediately replaced. The unit always numbers exactly 10,000. Always. They've marched across continents, crushed rebellions in Egypt, burned temples in Babylon, put down uprisings from India to the Aegean. When the immortals appear on a battlefield, enemy armies usually surrender before the fighting even starts. Their reputation alone has won victories. But here's the thing about reputations. They only matter if your enemy cares about them. And these Spartans, they don't seem impressed by much of anything, especially not fancy armor and golden spears. The immortals descend into the pass in perfect formation, drums beating, banners flying, 10,000 men moving like a single organism. The sound of their approach, it's like thunder rolling down the mountain. Persian horns blast from the heights above. Even the wind seems to pause. This is the moment Xerxes has been building toward. His elite against the Greek rebels, his finest warriors against 300 Spartans who should have fled days ago. But then they hit the narrows, and everything changes. All that training in open field combat? Useless. Those light shields and quick spears? Wrong tools for this fight. The pass is maybe 50 feet wide here, barely room for 20 men standing shoulder to shoulder. So what happens when 10,000 warriors try to squeeze through a gap that can only fit 20? They bottle up, they crush against each other, they become their own worst enemy. The Spartans are waiting behind their bronze wall, shields locked, spears leveled. They've been fighting for 4 straight days, but their formation hasn't wavered once. Still perfect, still deadly. The front rank steps forward as the immortals approach, muscles tense under bronze breastplates, spear points glinting in afternoon sun. These men have trained for this moment since they were 7 years old. The collision is devastating. Persian wicker shields meet Spartan bronze spears, and they don't stand a chance. Those light shields that work so well in cavalry charges, they're paper against 8-foot iron spear points driven by men who've spent decades perfecting the thrust. The first rank of immortals goes down in seconds. The second rank climbs over them and dies just as fast. Blood starts pooling in the rocky ground. Here's what the Persians don't understand about Spartan tactics. It's not just individual skill, though every Spartan can outfight any Persian one-on-one. It's the system, the rotation. When the front rank warrior gets tired, he steps back. Fresh man takes his place. The shield wall never weakens, never breaks. The spears keep stabbing, the bronze keeps holding, and the immortals, they're fighting the same tired men they started with. getting more exhausted with every charge. Leonidas watches from behind the front line. 60 years old, grey beard streaked with sweat and blood spatter. He's not shouting orders. Doesn't need to. These men know their business. He just nods when it's time to rotate. Points with his spear when he sees a weakness in Persian formation. His presence alone steadies the line. The other Spartans fight harder knowing their king is watching, knowing he'll die beside them if it comes to that. The immortals keep coming. Have to keep coming. Xerxes is watching from his golden throne on the hill above. 10,000 elite warriors can't be stopped by 300 Greeks. It's impossible. It's embarrassing. So they throw themselves forward again and again, climbing over mountains of their own dead, slipping on blood-soaked rocks, dying faster than they can be replaced. And for the first time in their history, the immortals start to look mortal. Hours pass. The sun moves across the sky. The narrow pass becomes a charnel house. Persian bodies 3 deep in places. The immortals are taking casualties they've never imagined. Not in Egypt, not in Babylon. Nowhere in their glorious history have they bled like this. And the Spartans, they're methodical, efficient, almost bored, like they're harvesting wheat instead of killing the Persian Empire's finest warriors. Just another day at the hot gates. By late afternoon, something's broken in the Persian assault. You can see it in their eyes. The immortals are still fighting, but there's no confidence left, no swagger. They're going through the motions because Xerxes demands it, but they know they're not winning this. They're just dying, feeding themselves to the bronze machine that is the Spartan phalanx. And the worst part? The Greeks don't even look tired. This is the moment when legend becomes reality. When 10,000 elite Persian warriors discover they're not immortal after all. When 300 Spartan farmers turned warriors prove that numbers don't always matter. That training beats talent. That courage beats reputation. The hot gates have become a killing ground, where the greatest army ever assembled learns it can bleed. And Xerxes starts to understand he might not conquer Greece after all. As darkness falls, the immortals finally withdraw, not defeated, that would be impossible to admit, but repositioned, regrouping. Whatever word saves face for elite troops who've just been mauled by a force 1/30th their size. The pass falls quiet except for the moaning of wounded Persians. Spartan warriors clean their spears and check their armor. Tomorrow will bring fresh challenges, but tonight they've proven that legends can die, and that ordinary men can become immortal. The Spartan fighting method. Picture this. Chaos everywhere. Men screaming, bronze clashing against bronze, dust choking the air thick as fog, Persian bodies piling up in the narrow pass. And through all this madness, the Spartans move like they're performing some ancient ritual, not frantic, not desperate, precise, each step calculated, each spear thrust timed perfectly with the man beside him. This isn't just fighting, it's something else entirely, something that turns 300 men into a single weapon of destruction. The phalanx, 8 rows deep, shields locked rim to rim, creating a bronze wall that stretches across the entire pass. Each shield overlaps the one beside it by about 6 inches. Your shield protects the man to your right. His shield protects you. Break that overlap and you're dead. Your neighbor's dead. The whole line crumbles. So you don't break it, ever. Your life depends on the guy next to you. His life depends on you. Simple math that keeps everyone alive. Behind those shields, 9-foot spears bristle like a bronze porcupine. The Persians see a wall of spear points, 3 rows deep, all aimed at chest height. They can't get close without running into that thicket of iron. And here's the thing, when a Spartan thrusts, it's not wild swinging. It's a precise 2-inch punch, just enough to puncture vital organs. In, out, back to guard position. No wasted motion, no heroic flourishes, just efficient killing, over and over again. The spearwork is pure artistry. Watch a Spartan's footwork, left foot forward, right foot anchored, weight shifting with each thrust. The spear slides through his grip like a lever, bronze point extending 9 feet from the front rank. When he strikes, his whole body drives the blow. Legs, hips, shoulders, all coordinated into 200 pounds of force behind a sharp iron tip. Then back to position before the enemy can react. Poetry written in bronze and blood. This is where it gets almost beautiful, in a terrible way. The phalanx moves like dancers who've rehearsed the same routine for 20 years. Step forward together, thrust together, step back together, shield up, shield down, all in perfect rhythm. The Persians charge into this bronze orchestra and find themselves fighting not individuals, but a single creature with 300 minds, thinking the same thoughts. Attack the left flank. The whole formation pivots. Try to break through. The ranks close seamlessly. Those bronze helmets tell the whole story. They restrict vision to maybe 30 degrees forward. A Spartan can barely see left or right. Sounds come muffled through the metal. In any normal fight, this would be suicide. But in the phalanx, it's perfect. He doesn't need to see everywhere. Just straight ahead, where the enemy is. His brothers handle the flanks. That helmet turns him into a bronze-faced nightmare. Impenetrable, focused, absolutely committed to whatever's directly in front of him. Individual heroics, forget it. In Sparta, the greatest insult is to call someone a trembler, someone who breaks formation to save himself. Here, courage means staying in line when every instinct screams run. The man behind you pushes your shield forward with his shield. You can't retreat even if you want to, and you don't want to. This isn't about personal glory, it's about being part of something bigger, something that's kept Sparta unconquered for 3 centuries. When a front-rank fighter gets tired, here's the magic. The whole rank steps back 3 feet. The second rank steps forward. Fresh spears, fresh arms, same deadly precision. The Persians think they're finally wearing down the Greeks. Then boom, new fighters, just as disciplined, just as lethal. It's like fighting a machine that repairs itself. No gaps, no confusion, just smooth rotation that keeps bronze points at Persian throats for hours without stopping. Listen to the rhythm of it. Bronze ringing against bronze, leather sandals shuffling on stone, the collective breathing of 300 men moving as one organism. Inhale on the step back, exhale on the thrust forward. Even their breathing is synchronized. The Persians hear this sound and it chills them, not the wild screaming of berserkers, but something worse. The methodical sounds of professionals going about their deadly business with absolute calm. From the Persian side, this must look like sorcery. They send their best fighters wave after wave, and they just disappear into this bronze wall. Not dramatically, not with epic duels. They simply walk into those spear points and drop. The Spartans don't even seem angry. No battle cries, no rage, just this eerie discipline that makes killing look routine, like they're harvesting grain instead of ending lives. That's what breaks the Persian morale more than anything. This precision comes from 20 years of training. Every morning since age 7, these men practiced with wooden swords until their arms bled, marching in formation until they could do it blind, learning to trust the man beside you more than yourself. By the time they reach Thermopylae, the phalanx isn't a battle tactic, it's muscle memory. Deeper than thought, their bodies know what to do even when their minds are overwhelmed by combat chaos. Imagine being a Persian soldier approaching this thing. You see bronze helmets with eye slits like death masks, spear points glittering in the sun, steady as fence posts. No movement, no emotion, just this wall of metal and leather and muscle waiting for you to get close enough to kill. Your friends are already dead at their feet. But orders are orders, so you charge anyway, knowing you're running toward your own death. The sound when phalanxes clash. Imagine a thunderclap that goes on for minutes. Bronze shields crashing together, spear shafts snapping like tree branches, men grunting with effort, the wet sounds of iron finding flesh. But underneath all that chaos, you still hear it, the steady shuffle of Spartan feet, the controlled breathing, the discipline that turns a battle into an execution. 300 men who've become something more than human. By the end of the second day, the Persians have learned something terrifying. They can't break this formation. Not with numbers, not with courage, not with anything they've brought to Greece. The Spartans have turned warfare into mathematics, and the equation always comes out the same way. Persian dead piled 3 deep, Spartan line intact, ready for the next wave, but Xerxes has one more card to play, and it's going to change everything. The betrayal of Ephialtes. Third night at Thermopylae. Persian campfires stretch across the plain like fallen stars. Xerxes sits in his tent surrounded by maps and frustrated generals. 2 days of assault. 2 days of watching his finest troops die against Greek bronze. Then, footsteps outside. Guards announce a visitor. A local man, Greek, says he has information, says he knows these mountains. The great king looks up from his wine cup, and history pivots on what happens next, because some betrayals change everything. Epitaph, that's his name. Local shepherd from Malice. Hunched shoulders, twisted spine, the kind of deformity that marks a man in the ancient world. Marks him as cursed, maybe. Definitely marks him as different. He's nervous, standing before the King of Kings, hands shaking slightly. But his eyes are calculating, hungry. This isn't desperation talking. This is opportunity and resentment. Years of resentment about to spill over into something that will echo through 25 centuries. See, if fealties tried to join them, the Spartans showed up at their camp maybe a week ago, offering his services. Local knowledge, mountain skills, but Spartan law is brutal, absolute. No deformed men in the phalanx, period. Can't hold a shield properly with that twisted frame. Can't lock into formation. They turned him away without ceremony, just dismissed, like he was nothing. And here's the thing about humiliation. It festers, it grows, it finds a way to bite back. So now Ephialtes bows before Xerxes. Persian gold gleaming in torchlight, silk cushions, the wealth of an empire on display. Everything the shepherd could never have in his mountain village. Great king, he says, voice steadier now. I bring you victory. Bold words from a bent man, but Xerxes leans forward, interested. Because after watching thousands of his warriors die against 300 Spartans, he's willing to listen to anyone, even a Greek traitor with a crooked spine. The revelation comes simple, direct. There's another way, Ephialtes says, points to the mountains east of the pass. A path, goat trail really, called the Anapaea, winds up through the peaks, then down behind their position. He traces it in the air with a gnarled finger. Send men that way. You come out behind the Greeks. Trap them. Xerxes goes very still. His generals exchange glances. Because this changes absolutely everything. The unbreakable position just became a death trap. You can see it click in Xerxes' mind. The tactical possibilities spreading like fire. For 3 days his army has been a hammer striking bronze. Massive, powerful, but useless against that narrow pass. Now suddenly he's got a dagger for their backs. Hydarnes, commander of the Immortals, steps forward. This path, it's real? Ephialtes nods. I've walked it 1,000 times. Sheep trails, steep in places, but passable. Takes most of a night to traverse, but doable. Xerxes smiles, the first genuine smile in days. The Anapaea, ancient path through the Oeta Mountains, probably carved by wild animals first. Deer, mountain goats, then used by shepherds for centuries. Narrow, rocky, treacherous in places. But it does exactly what Oeta claims, winds up through the peaks, then drops down behind Thermopylae, behind the Greek position. Any force using it could come out on the Greeks' rear, turn their impregnable defense into a surrounded position. It's the kind of local knowledge that wins wars, and Ephialtes just handed it over. Think about the tactical nightmare this creates for Leonidas. Right now he's got 300 Spartans holding a bottleneck. Persians can only attack from one direction. Numbers don't matter in that configuration. Bronze wall, spear points, methodical killing. But get behind that wall. Suddenly the Spartans are surrounded, fighting on 2 fronts. Their advantage evaporates. Their position becomes impossible. And Leonidas knows these mountains have paths. He's posted the Phocians up there to guard them. But one night march by Persians. What drives a man to this? Ephialtes stands there negotiating. Persian gold, yes. Promised riches, but it's more than greed, isn't it? It's that moment of rejection, that dismissal, being deemed unworthy by the very men who claim to embody Greek virtue, honor, courage, all those bronze-muscled ideals that cast him aside like damaged goods. Maybe he tells himself the Persians will win anyway. Maybe he convinces himself he's just being practical. Maybe, but really, this is about showing them all. Persian preparations begin immediately. Hydarnes selects his men, the Immortals naturally, elite troops who can handle a mountain march, light equipment, no heavy armor for this mission. Speed and stealth over protection. They'll need to move fast, stay quiet. Attack at dawn when the Greeks least expect it. Ephialtes will guide them personally, his local knowledge ensuring they don't get lost in the darkness. The irony is perfect. A Greek leading Persians to victory over Greeks, history turning on one man's wounded pride. The bitter irony cuts deep. Here's Leonidas, embodying everything noble about Spartan virtue. Sacrifice, duty, honor unto death. And it's about to be undone by the exact opposite. Ephialtes represents everything the Spartans despise. Weakness, self-interest, the willingness to betray your own people for personal gain. Two sides of the Greek character, maybe. The heroic and the base, the bronze ideal and the human reality. And tonight, the human reality is about to destroy the bronze ideal, through treachery, through gold, through spite. Everything changes now. The dynamic that's held for 3 days just shattered. Xerxes finally has his answer to the Spartan phalanx. Not superior tactics, not better warriors, just good old-fashioned backstabbing. And you know what? It'll work, because Leonidas, for all his martial genius, can't fight geography, can't fight betrayal. The Anapaea path exists whether the Spartans acknowledge it or not, and now it belongs to the Persians. The unthinkable has become inevitable. The 300 are about to become trapped. Dawn will bring Spartan scouts racing back to the pass with impossible news. Persian forces behind them, moving down from the mountains. The Phocians overwhelmed or fled. The trap closing, and Leonidas will understand immediately what's happened. Someone talked, someone showed them the way. The mathematics of the situation will be brutal, clear, stay and die, leave and abandon the mission. But we know what choice he'll make, because this is Sparta, and Spartans don't retreat, even when betrayed, even when doomed. Ephialtes gets his gold, gets his revenge, gets to watch the mighty Spartans die knowing he helped kill them. But history remembers differently. His name becomes synonymous with betrayal in Greek culture. Ephialtes becomes the word for traitor, for the man who sells out his countrymen. 25 centuries later, we still know his name, still spit when we say it. Some victories cost more than defeat. Some gold tarnishes faster than bronze. Some betrayals echo forever. And the Anapaea path, it leads to infamy. The final night, a farewell to allies. Third day of battle ends. Stars emerge over Thermopylae. The killing ground below still reeks of Persian blood, but something's changed. A Spartan scout stumbles down the mountain path, breathless, eyes wide with terrible news. The goat trail. Ephialtes showed them the goat trail. Persian forces are already climbing over the mountains, circling behind them like wolves. Dawn will bring enemies from 2 directions. Leonidas receives this report in silence, standing among his 300 warriors who've bled and died here for 3 days. The tactical situation is hopeless now. Basic military math. 7,000 Greeks can hold a narrow pass against any number of frontal attacks, but they can't fight surrounded. Leonidas has maybe 6 hours before Persian forces complete their flanking movement. 6 hours to decide who lives and who dies. He calls together the allied commanders, Thespians, Thebans, men from a dozen Greek cities who followed him here believing in a winnable fight. Now it's become something else entirely. A sacrifice, a statement written in blood. The king's voice carries across the camp, calm as stone. Most of you will leave before dawn. This isn't your end to choose. Take your men, march south, live to fight again when the odds aren't suicide. Some commanders argue, they came here as allies. They'll die as allies. Leonidas cuts them off. Sparta's law forbids retreat. Your cities have no such obligation. Go home. Tell them what happened here. Tell them 3 days at the hot gates, bought time for Greece to prepare. But not everyone accepts the king's dismissal. The Thespians refuse outright. 700 men from a tiny city-state, who somehow find courage bigger than their homeland. We're staying. We chose this fight. We'll finish it. The Thebans too, though their motives are murkier. Political prisoners maybe, or genuine volunteers. 400 more. And of course the 300 Spartans never had a choice. Spartan law is absolute. Come back with your shield or on it. There's no third option. Night deepens. The Allied withdrawal begins quietly, men gathering gear, checking weapons one last time. Awkward goodbyes between warriors who've shared 3 days of hell together. No speeches, no dramatic moments, just soldiers doing what soldiers do when the mission changes. Pack up, move out, survive if you can. The departing footsteps fade into mountain silence, leaving behind barely 1,400 men to face the entire Persian army. The odds just went from impossible to absurd. Leonidas walks among his remaining warriors. These men have known this moment was coming since they left Sparta. Every Spartan warrior understands the mathematics of honor. Sometimes you fight to win, sometimes you fight to delay, sometimes you fight simply because fighting is what you are. Tonight falls into that third category. They're not trying to survive dawn anymore. They're trying to make their deaths count for something. Make the Persians pay a price that echoes across history. The preparations are methodical. Bronze helmets polished one final time. Shield straps checked. Spear points tested for sharpness. These rituals matter more tonight than they ever have before. Each gesture connects them to every Spartan warrior who came before. Every father and grandfather who taught them that courage isn't about winning. It's about doing what's right, when doing what's right means dying. The weapons gleam in firelight like religious artifacts, which, in a way, they are. Some men write letters on pieces of pottery, final messages to wives and children they'll never see again. Others pray to their gods, making offerings of wine and oil. A few sharpen their blades in complete silence, lost in private thoughts. There's no panic here, no weeping or despair. This is what they trained for their entire lives. The moment when Spartan discipline transforms ordinary human fear into something transcendent, death approaching like dawn, inevitable, almost peaceful now that the waiting's over. Leonidas finds himself thinking about his son Pleistarchus, barely 10 years old, safe in Sparta with his mother. The boy will grow up hearing stories about this night, about his father's choice at Thermopylae. Will he understand? Will he see honor in dying for something bigger than yourself? Or will he just see abandonment? The king pushes these thoughts away. Second guessing leads to hesitation. Hesitation gets you killed. Tonight, getting killed is the point, but it has to be done right, with purpose, with dignity. The Thespians make their own quiet preparations. 700 farmers and shopkeepers who somehow found themselves standing beside Spartans at the end of the world. They're not professional soldiers like the 300, but they've earned their place here through 3 days of bleeding and fighting and refusing to break. Tonight, they're writing themselves into legends. A tiny city most Greeks couldn't find on a map. About to become immortal through sheer stubborn courage. History will remember them too. Around midnight, a Persian herald approaches under a white flag. One last chance to surrender. Xerxes offers life, luxury, positions in his army, if they'll just lay down their weapons and submit. The offer hangs in the mountain air for exactly 3 seconds before Leonidas gives his answer. Molon Lab, come and take them. The herald vanishes back into Persian darkness, carrying news that will reach the great king within the hour. The Greeks choose death over submission. Still, even now, the final hours crawl by. Some men sleep, somehow managing rest before their last battle. Others stare at stars counting down to dawn. The mountain air carries sounds from the Persian camp, hundreds of thousands of enemies preparing for victory, celebrating early, already dividing up Greek spoils in their minds. But they don't understand what they're facing tomorrow. This isn't defeat for the Greeks. This is transformation. 1,400 men becoming something more than human, becoming ether, becoming eternal. Just before dawn, Leonidas addresses his warriors one final time. Today we dine in hell, he tells them, borrowing the phrase from ancient Spartan tradition. Not a promise of victory, not even a promise of honorable death. Just acknowledgement that some fights transcend winning and losing. Some stands matter more than survival. Today they'll teach the world that free men don't kneel to tyrants, no matter the odds. Today they'll prove that courage can be stronger than fear, even when fear makes perfect sense. The eastern sky begins to lighten. Persian forces emerge from the mountain path behind them. Right on schedule. The trap is complete. 1,400 Greeks surrounded by the largest army in human history. Perfect tactical disaster. Perfect moral victory. Leonidas looks back at the wall they've defended for 3 days, then forward toward the wider part of the pass where they'll make their final stand. Time to go. Time to write the ending history we'll never forget. Time to show the world what Sparta means. Dawn of the last day. The grey light creeps over Thermopylae like a funeral shroud. August 11th, 480 BCE, third dawn since the killing began. But this morning feels different, heavier. The air tastes of salt and blood and something else, finality. Leonidas stands at the wall, bronze breastplate catching the pale light. His beard is streaked with dust and darker stains. Around him the 300, still here, still breathing, still Spartan, but they all know. The scouts returned an hour ago with news that changes everything. Persian forces are moving through the mountain path. The Anapaea trail, that bastard Ephialtes led them around the Greek position during the night, which means the Spartans are surrounded. Persians in front, Persians behind. The tactical situation has become impossible. Most of the Greek allies pulled out before dawn. Smart move, honestly. No point in everyone dying here. But the 300, they're not going anywhere. This is what they came for. Leonidas calls them together. No speeches, no grand declarations, just quiet words between warriors who've shared 3 days of hell. They understand what's coming, death, certain and complete. But here's the thing about Spartans. They get to choose how they die, and dying trapped behind a wall like cornered animals, that's not the Spartan way. Lions don't cower behind stones. They face their enemies in the open, teeth bared. So they make a decision that defines heroism for the next 25 centuries. They're going to leave the wall, leave the narrow choke point that's kept them alive. They're going to advance into the wider part of the pass, into the killing ground, where Persian numbers will actually matter, where they'll be completely exposed. It's tactical suicide, and they know it. That's exactly the point. This isn't about winning anymore. This is about how you face the end. With your head up, with your spear ready, with your brothers beside you. The wall has served its purpose. For 3 days it channeled Persian attacks into manageable streams. But now it's just stone. And Spartans aren't made of stone. They're made of something harder, something that doesn't break even when everything else does, something that chooses its own terms. They strip their equipment down to essentials: bronze helmets, circular shields, short swords. Some still have spears that aren't broken, most don't. 3 days of combat has taken its toll on weapons and men, but their spirits, unbroken. They've proven what they came to prove, that free men fight differently than slaves, that Sparta's reputation isn't built on myths, that when the rest of the world kneels, some people still stand. The Persian camp stirs in the distance. Cooking fires, the sound of 10,000 men waking up, getting ready for what they assume will be the final assault. Easy work now that they have the Greeks surrounded. No more grinding against that terrible wall of bronze and iron. No more watching their best soldiers die in the narrows. Today they'll overwhelm the stubborn Greeks with pure numbers. Except the Greeks aren't waiting to be overwhelmed. They're coming out to meet their fate. Leonidas raises his spear, what's left of it anyway, and the 300 form up one last time. Not the tight phalanx of the past 3 days. Something looser, more open, ready for the chaos to come, ready to die like lions, because that's what they are. That's what Sparta made them. They step away from the wall, away from safety, into the wider part of the pass where there's room to move, room to fight, room to die properly. The morning light catches their bronze shields, throwing patterns across the rocks. 300 points of light, 300 hearts beating as one, 300 men who've already written their names in eternity. Now they're just dotting the final letter. Persian trumpets sound in the distance. Orders shouted in a dozen languages, the great army beginning to move. And here's what gets me about this moment. The Spartans could have stayed behind the wall, could have made the Persians come to them one more time, could have extracted every possible tactical advantage from their position. Instead, they choose honor over tactics. They choose to die as free men. Think about that choice for a second. When everything else is gone, when hope is gone, when victory is impossible, when death is certain, you still get to choose how you meet it. Cowering or standing, begging or fighting, as a slave or as a free man. The Spartans made their choice 3 days ago when they came here. Now they're just completing it. The sun climbs higher. The grey dawn gives way to golden morning. Beautiful day to die, really. The sea sparkles beyond the pass. The mountains stand eternal and indifferent. and between sea and stone, 300 Spartan warriors prepare to write the final chapter of a story that will echo through history, not because they won, because they chose how to lose. Leonidas looks at his men, his friends, his brothers. Some he's known since childhood in the Agoge. Some have sons who'll carry their names. Some have wives who'll weep and then remarry and raise new Spartans. All of them understand what they're about to do, what they're about to become. Not just dead soldiers, something more, something that tyranny can never touch. An idea that will outlive empires. The Persian army approaches, thousands upon thousands. The immortals in their golden scales, cavalry from the steppes, archers from the ends of the earth, all of them converging on this narrow place where 300 Greeks wait in the open, wait to show the world what free men can do when they have nothing left to lose, when all they have left is how they choose to die. The killing ground. Dawn breaks grey over Thermopylae. The Spartans know what's coming. Persian forces pour down from the mountain path behind them. More masses surge from the front. Leonidas makes his final decision. Advance into the wider part of the pass. No more hiding behind walls. They'll meet death in the open, like lions. 300 bronze shields catch the morning light one last time. Spear points gleam. This is it. The moment that will echo through 25 centuries. The final stand begins. The Persians hesitate. Even with overwhelming numbers, charging these bronze-armored killers feels like approaching wild animals. But Xerxes demands it. Arrows whistle overhead first. The Spartans raise shields, bronze ringing against iron points. Then the charge. Thousands of Persian infantry crash into 300 men who've spent their entire lives preparing for this exact moment. The sound, bronze on bronze, screaming, the wet thud of spear points finding flesh, the phalanx holds. For precious minutes, the old magic works. Shield locked to shield, spears bristling forward. The Spartans are still a killing machine. Persians die in heaps before the bronze wall. But there are just too many of them. They flow around the flanks like water. The perfect formation starts to buckle. Individual fights break out. This isn't phalanx warfare anymore. This is survival. Each Spartan now fights alone, surrounded, but they fight like demons. Their bronze armor runs red. Spears snap under the pressure. 8-foot ash shafts splinter against Persian shields and armor, but a broken spear still has an iron point. The Spartans keep stabbing with whatever's left. When the spear points break off completely, they draw their swords. These aren't ceremonial blades, they're work tools, designed for close-quarters butchery. The bronze sings as it cuts. Persian blood pools in the rocky ground. But for every Persian who falls, 3 more take his place. The circle keeps tightening. Leonidas fights in the center, his red horsehair crest visible above the chaos. He's not young anymore, 50 years old, but 30 years of Spartan training doesn't just disappear. His sword work is poetry, economic, deadly. Around him his men are falling, not from cowardice, not from giving up. They're literally being overwhelmed by numbers. But they keep fighting. Even wounded, they keep fighting. It's what they were born for. The swords start breaking too. Bronze and iron, stressed beyond their limits. But a sword hilt still has weight. A broken blade still has an edge. The Spartans adapt. They always adapt. Some grab Persian weapons from the dead. Others use their shields as weapons, the heavy bronze rims crushing skulls. A few fight with nothing but their bare hands and their rage. They bite. They claw. They refuse to die quietly. This is where the legend really gets insane. Because normal men, when they're disarmed and surrounded, surrender, or at least try to run. Not these guys. A Spartan with a broken sword grabs a Persian by the throat and doesn't let go until they both hit the ground. Another, bleeding from half a dozen wounds, keeps fighting with a rock. The Persians have never seen anything like this. It's not human. Xerxes, watching from his golden throne, starts to understand what he's really fighting. These aren't just soldiers, they're something else entirely. Products of a system that turns boys into weapons. Every one of them has been preparing for this moment since age 7. Death doesn't scare them. Surrender isn't even a concept. They literally don't know how to quit, and it's starting to terrify his own men. The Persian infantry starts pulling back, not running, just creating distance. Getting killed by these maniacs in hand-to-hand combat isn't warfare anymore. It's suicide. Even the immortals are hesitating. That's when Xerxes makes the call. Archers. Thousands of them. If the Spartans won't die properly in close combat, they'll die from a distance. The order goes out. Knock arrows. Take aim. The sky darkens. Remember what that Spartan said the night before. When someone complained the Persian arrows would blot out the sun, then we'll fight in the shade. Well, now they get to find out if he meant it. The arrow storm begins. Not a few dozen shots. Thousands. The air fills with iron points and feathered shafts. The Spartans raise what's left of their shields. Bronze rings like thunder. But you can't block everything. One by one they start falling. Not from sword cuts. Not from spear thrusts. From arrows punching through gaps in their armor. And even then, even with iron in their guts, in their lungs, in their hearts, some of them keep trying to fight, crawling toward the enemy, reaching for weapons. The Persians watch in absolute silence. This isn't victory anymore. It's witnessing something impossible. Men who refuse to accept death. Leonidas goes down near the end. Multiple arrows. But he doesn't drop his broken sword. Even on his knees, he's still dangerous. The last few Spartans form up around their king's body. Maybe a dozen left. Then 6. Then 3. The arrows keep coming. The bronze armor that protected them so well against swords and spears means nothing against this iron rain. But they die on their feet. When it's finally over, silence falls over Thermopylae. The Persians won't advance for several minutes. Nobody wants to be the first to approach these bodies. When they finally do, they find something that will haunt them forever. 300 dead men arranged around their dead king. Not scattered in retreat. Not fallen while running. They died where they chose to make their stand. Xerxes himself comes down from his throne to see, and what he finds makes him so angry he orders Leonidas's head cut off. Crucified. It's unprecedented. Kings don't desecrate royal bodies. But this wasn't just a battle. It was 3 days of being told no by men who had no right to win. And somehow, even in death, the Spartans had won something. They'd shown the world that the great king could bleed. The legacy written in blood. When the dust settles on that 3rd day, Persian soldiers advance cautiously through the wider pass. The silence feels wrong after 3 days of constant warfare. They step carefully around broken spears and shattered shields. Bronze helmets catch the afternoon light, and there, in the center of the killing ground, they find what they've come to claim. King Leonidas lies dead, surrounded by his 300 Spartans. Every single one of them. Not one had fled. Not one had surrendered. They'd kept their promise to the end. The Persian soldiers stare at the scene with something approaching awe. These aren't just enemy dead. These are men who chose to die rather than retreat. You can see it in how they fell. Shields still locked together even in death. Bodies forming defensive clusters around their king. The Spartans had died as they'd lived, as one unit. The Persians count the enemy dead scattered around them. Thousands of their own warriors, killed by just 300 men, and their Greek allies. The mathematics of sacrifice suddenly becomes clear. Back at the Persian camp, Xerxes receives the news of victory. But this isn't celebration, it's rage. Pure, unprecedented fury. For 3 days, 300 Spartans had humiliated the great King of Kings before the eyes of his entire army, made him look weak, made him look ordinary. The cost had been catastrophic. Elite immortals dead by the hundreds. His brother Abro comes killed. Officers from the finest families of Persia cut down by Greek bronze. Victory? Yes. But at what price? This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Xerxes gives an order that shocks even his own generals. Find the body of Leonidas. Behead it. Crucify what remains. For a Persian king, this goes against every tradition of respecting fallen enemies. But rational thought has left the building. The great king wants to make a statement. He wants to show what happens when someone dares resist the Persian Empire. What he doesn't realize is that he's about to create the most powerful piece of propaganda in human history. Sometimes rage makes you stupid. The desecration happens in full view of the army. Leonidas's head is severed from his body. His corpse is nailed to a cross. Xerxes thinks he's sending a message of dominance. Instead, he's writing the final chapter of the greatest military legend ever told. Because here's what tyrants never understand. Martyrdom is more powerful than victory. When you kill someone who dies for principle, you don't destroy their cause, you make it immortal. Xerxes just guaranteed that every Greek would know this story. News of Leonidas's fate spreads through Greece like wildfire, and the reaction isn't fear, it's fury, pure volcanic rage. The Persians had crossed a line. You don't desecrate the body of a king who died defending his homeland. Every Greek city that had been wavering about resistance suddenly knows exactly where it stands. Sparta's allies double their commitment. Neutral cities pick sides. The Persian army may have won at Thermopylae, but Xerxes had just lost the propaganda war, spectacularly. Meanwhile, that 3-day delay at Thermopylae was changing everything. While Spartans died in the pass, the Greek fleet had been maneuvering in the waters off Salamis. Those 3 days? Critical. Time to coordinate, time to prepare, time to choose the perfect battlefield for a naval engagement. When Xerxes finally marches south and burns Athens, he finds an empty city. The real fight is about to happen on the water, and the Greeks are ready for him. Salamis becomes the turning point. The massive Persian fleet, overconfident from land victories, sails into a trap. Greek triremes ram and sink Persian ships in narrow waters, where numbers don't matter. Xerxes watches his navy destroyed from a golden throne on the hillside. The invasion that started with such promise ends in complete disaster. Within a year, the Persians will be driven from Greek soil entirely. The 300 at Thermopylae had bought time for civilization itself to survive. Years later, the Greeks return to Thermopylae. They rebuild the ancient wall, bury the dead properly, and erect a simple stone monument with words that will echo through eternity. Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here obedient to their laws we lie. 11 words, that's all. No boasting about glory or victory, just the simple truth. They did their duty. They kept their word. They died where they were supposed to die. And somehow that quiet dignity makes it even more powerful. 2,500 years later, we're still telling this story. Think about that for a second. Empires have risen and fallen. Languages have disappeared. Entire civilizations have been forgotten, but we still know the names of 300 Spartan warriors who died in a mountain pass in 480 BCE, because they proved something fundamental about human nature, that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they're fighting for something bigger than themselves. That courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite fear. The Battle of Thermopylae teaches us that numbers don't always decide the outcome, that discipline beats chaos, that a few people committed to a principle can change the course of history. Every time someone stands up to a bully, faces impossible odds, or refuses to compromise their values, they're channeling something that started in that narrow pass. The 300 didn't just die for Sparta, they died for the idea that free people can choose their own destiny. Today, Thermopylae is peaceful. Tourists walk where warriors died. The sea still crashes against the same rocks. The mountains still stand witness. But the pass has changed. Centuries of silt deposits have moved the coastline. The narrow gap where 300 men held the line is now inland, surrounded by olive groves and quiet villages. The hot springs that gave the place its name still bubble up from the earth. But the Bronze Age drama feels like a dream. School buses arrive daily. Kids from Athens and beyond climb out. Cameras ready, eager to see where history happened. They pose next to monuments and statues, read plaques in multiple languages. Try to imagine the chaos of ancient battle in this serene landscape. Their teachers explain tactics and strategy, point out the geographical advantages. But somehow the real power of this place, the weight of what happened here, that requires silence to feel properly. Stand quietly at Thermopylae as the sun sets over the Aegean. Listen to the wind through the mountains. Watch the shadows lengthen across the plain where armies once assembled. And in that peaceful silence, you might hear the echo of bronze on bronze, the ghost of ancient voices, men choosing duty over survival, honor over life, the eternal whisper that some things are worth dying for. Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie.